snakes out there yet?
No, I'm waiting for the blackberries to bloom, though, to ripen.
Ugh.
No
And
snakes.
pick the ones behind my house. They're out of control this year. As is the long grass and everything else back there.
Okay, we are live on YouTube and as well as the Dash Point Room for staff. So good to go.
Great. Thomas, thank you. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. As far as roll is concerned, want to make sure the public is aware of who is here. Besides myself, we have Mark Kopang as the committee chair. Got members Juan Tran, who has suddenly disappeared, and Councilmember Martin Moore. There's Juan. Okay. And then in addition to the committee members, we have Council President Susan Honda, Councilmember Linda Kochmar, and Councilmember Greg Brusso. And I know that Lydia was on at one point. Is Lydia still on?
I'm still on.
Very good. And then Lydia Seppa Dawson's on as well. So we are well represented by the council tonight. I'm going to go ahead and start with the first order of business, which typically would be public comment, but I was notified by Rebecca that there is no public comment, so we will go directly from public comment to committee business. And the first order of business will be approval of the May 4th, 2020 committee minutes. So do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the May 4th, 2020 committee minutes.
Very good.
And I will second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Hearing a motion is second, unless there's any further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Now on to item B on the agenda, or topic B on the agenda, which is the 2021 Asphalt Overlay Program preliminary project list and authorization of bid. And John Cole will be presenting. John, welcome to Land Use. Good to see you again.
Thank you. The share screen. You guys over. Okay. Committee members, Mr. Chair, Mr. Kopang, I'm here to present the 2021 already asphalt overlay program preliminary project list and authorization to bid. Policy question that I present for you today is, should the council approve the 2021 asphalt overlay program preliminary project list and authorize staff to proceed with the design and bidding of the proposed 2021 asphalt overlay program. The budget for the 2021 is from arterial program, the REET and the MVET Fund 102 for $599,000, as well as residential and arterial program 7030 solid waste utility tax for $1,125,000 for a total funding available of $1,725,000. The recommended schedules are, there's 5 of them, South 312th from 8th to 12th place south, which is a continuation of the one that we did this year, which was from Pacific to 8th. Southwest 312 from 14th to 8th, 8th Avenue South, Marine Hills, and 39th Avenue South from South 320th to South 326th for a total estimated construction cost of approximately $2.5 million. Estimated program costs, like I said, $2.488 million. with a construction contingency of $124,432, in-house design of $60,000, and then in-house construction and admin at $130,000, puts the estimated program cost at approximately $2.8 million. The $2.8 million is preliminary figure used for estimating purposes only. 2021 asphalt overlay project will be awarded within the available overlay program budget, with the estimated advertising date of January 2021 and a start of construction of April of 2021. Options considered. Option number 1 is approve the list of streets for the 2021 asphalt overlay project as presented and authorize staff to bid the 2021 asphalt overlay project, returning for authorization to award, the project within the available 2021 asphalt overlay budget to the lowest responsible bidder. Option 2, direct staff to modify the preliminary list and return to the committee for further action. Mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1 to the June 16th, 2020 council consent agenda for approval. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
John, thank you for the presentation. Committee members, any questions? Hearing none, is there any council members that have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Council President Honda.
Considering that we're going into a recession over there already, and we don't know what our revenues are going to look like next year, these would be prioritized by A, B, C, D, and E as to what we could afford if we had to make a decision. Is that correct?
No, A through D is just arbitrary. They'd be based on need and not necessarily in that order.
Okay. Is that something that you have talked about? Perhaps having to make a decision if you can't do all of these?
It definitely, we've discussed not being able to talk about. As you can see, budget and available funding already is, there's a slight discrepancy there based on, we have 2 different roads that were out for state funding on, and it would be a matching kind of thing. So there's some funds tied up in that. And so there will definitely be alternative schedules to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
John, thank you. Unless there's any further questions, I have a motion.
Mr.
Thank you,
Chair,
Juan. Yeah.
You're welcome. I move to forward option 1 to the June 16, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval.
All right.
And I'll second that.
Very good. Okay, having a motion is second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
I read your lips, Martin. Yeah. Okay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay. With that, John, thank you. We'll move on to item C, which is the Lakota Middle School at Southwest Ash Point Road 30% design report. And Jeff Hahn will be presenting. Jeff, welcome. And you are muted. You're still muted. There you go. No? Huh.
Right. Good evening.
Okay, Jeff.
Committee members, council members. My name is Jeff Hahn. I'm the capital engineer for the City of Federal Way. and I'm presenting the Lakota Middle School at Southwest Das Point Road 30% Design to Committee. The policy question is, so the City Council authorize staff to proceed with design of the Lakota Middle School at Southwest Das Point Road and return to LUTC and Council at 85% design completion for further reports and authorization. The financial impact. The cost to the city for Lakota Middle School at Southwest Das Point Road was included within the approved budget under the Public Works Department Capital Project number 204. This item is funded by a federal grant from WashDOT and TIB in the amount of $1,850,000. Upon completion of the project, ongoing costs associated with operations and maintenance will be performed and funded through street maintenance. Funding requirements for operations and maintenance of infrastructure is reviewed and adjusted as required during the budget process. The background about this project, the Lakota Middle School at Southwest Das Point Road project provides sidewalk, bicycle lane, street lights on Southwest Das Point Road from 21st Avenue Southwest to Southwest 312 Streets. Progress to today. For completed tasks, we have a topo survey, project design to 30%, and WASAT coordination. The ongoing tasks include utility coordination, preliminary contract specifications, project design to 85%, and NEPA applications and approval. The estimated total cost is $1,767,000, which includes design, 2021 construction costs, 10% construction contingency, construction management and inspection. The available funding for the Lakota Middle School at Southwest Das Point Road is $1,850,000 and is comprised of federal grants and state TIB. The options before committees are: 1, authorize staff to proceed with design of the Lakota Middle School at Southwest Das Point Road and return to LUTC and Council at 85% design completion for further reports and authorization. 2, do not authorize staff to proceed with this project and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends forwarding option 1 to the June 16, 2020 City Council consent agenda for approval, and staff is available for any questions you may have.
Jeff, thank you for the presentation. Committee members, do you have any questions? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, is there any other council members that have any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Of course, Councilmember Sefa Dawson.
Yeah. Is this a project that the school district gets involved in?
No, for this is a sidewalk winding, and the school does not chip in for the funding. This is just the safety route to school, and it just washed out in TIB monies only.
Oh, okay. So we don't get engaged. I mean, the school district does not. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Any additional questions? I don't see any. Oh, I do see a hand raised. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. So I see that the city's safe selection to federal dollars are being used. TIB, which is what I just heard you say, Jeff, is that's what's being used to fund this? Is that right?
Yes, we got 1.35 from federal and the state TIB, approximately 500,000.
So just help me kind of understand. So the federal dollars, that's not a grant, is it?
It is a grant, yes.
Okay. Good. Okay. And just I'm very curious. If we decide not to do this, what happens?
I think it's going to go back to the pot, and it's going to be awarded to other agencies that are needed. I mean, Desiree can explain it better on that.
No, there's no city funds in this at all.
Yeah, there's no city fund in this project. So if we
100% grant.
Yeah, it's 100% grant, and if we're not accepting, it's going to go back to the pot.
Yeah, and Jeff, I asked that because, like I said, it appears that we're kind of headed on a difficult budget, and I think having those points being clarified, I think are always a good thing, and that's merely what I'm doing. And I think it's extraordinary that we have 1.3 million from the federal government and TIB. What is that? Transportation Improvement Board, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. They've always been really good with this type of thing. So I think it's important that the public knows that the funding source as well. So.
Yeah, like I say,
it. Thank
100% funded. The estimate is 1.767, and the funding is 1.85. So we have plenty to cover our cost.
Jeff, thank you. Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Yes, I am prepared to make the motion, Mr. Chair. I'm just scrolling back up here. I move to forward option 1 to the June 16th, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
I second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Tran. Unless there's any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. And Councilmember Moore Committee Member Moore did vote aye. Rebecca, for the record, as did Juan and myself.
Yes.
So carried unanimously. All right. Next on the agenda is, let's see here. We have Rick Perez, and he is going to be discussing a resolution for adoption of the 2021 through 26 Transportation Improvement Plan and Arterial Street Improvement Plan. So
All
Rick, good to see you. And
y'all.
Yeah.
And let me get this thing started here. So I'm here to present the 2021 through 26 Transportation Improvement Plan. There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. Oh, it's bouncing ahead. I'm sorry. Need to put careful about where I put my papers. Here to talk about the 6-year transportation improvement plan. And the policy question is, should the council authorize staff to proceed with the adoption of the 2021 through 26 City of Federal Way Transportation Improvement Plan and Arterial Street Improvement Plan at a public hearing on June 16th, 2020. So apologies to those who've heard this before many times, but the 6-year TIP is a plan for transportation-related capital improvement projects that is updated annually and is a requirement for grant eligibility. It must be financially constrained, meaning that we have to have a reasonable chance, if not secured funding, for projects in the first 3 years. And needs to conform to air quality requirements and has to be adopted after a public hearing prior to July 1. So the council had adopted the prioritization criteria that are used, and they include level of service improvement, which is basically a measurement of the capacity on the roadways, the number of collisions, the collision rate, and the collision severity history, whether a project is supportive of high occupancy vehicles, whether a project is supportive of non-motorized modes, levels of community support, air quality impacts, ease of implementation, and benefit cost ratio. So this is just a quick map outlining where the projects are and so a variety of programs we're showing now. So compared to previous year, we have completed one project, which is 21st Avenue South from 314th to 316th, and that's the stairway project. We have a revised scope for the next phase of the City Center Access Project, and up till this point, we've been listing the widening of the 320th Street overpass over I-5. We are now proposing to build the southbound ramps first, which will actually provide some congestion relief prior to having to widen 320th. Last year, we added several ongoing programs, and so this year we're adding the street vegetation management program that has now been taken over by the city instead of contracted out. New projects. So with the adaptive control system in City Center, we were not able to fully fund all of the vehicle detection upgrades necessary. And so this is a project that we submitted for a grant application, and hopefully we'll find out soon how it did. So here, the ones that are shown in purple are the ones where we'd be upgrading the detection. Also showing a couple future phases of what adaptive may be added onto. And this is the First Avenue South corridor for phase 4. Mind you, we have phases 1, 2, and 3 funded at this point. Phase 5 is expanding that to include 21st Avenue Southwest and Campus Drive. An overlay project that we're applying for regional funds for is Military Road from 320th to SR 18. A project that those of you with a long history may recall, we actually have the design on the shelf for this, 356th from 1st to Highway 99, and that would widen it out to 4 lanes with bike lanes and sidewalks. A new project that came out of actually a neighborhood request to do a compact roundabout at 27th Avenue Southwest and Southwest 344th Street. And it just so happened to fit into our local safety plan update. Another project we submitted for grant application is the Southwest King County Regional Trail Plan. And I'm using this map to demonstrate that the regional trails don't connect to Federal Way in King County. And so we are asking for funds regionally to plan for the future trail alignments that would connect to the rest of the regional system. We also, since pedestrian collisions tend to be an ongoing issue for the city, as identified in the local road safety plan update, we are proposing to expand the citywide improvements for mid-block crossings. And this was subject of a grant application. And then similarly, we've had the issue at some of our existing locations where the rectangular rapid flashing beacon installed in the median tends to get knocked down a lot. And so we are proposing to move those to an overhead installation with this other project. And that is also subject of a grant application. So with that, Option 1 would be to recommend approval of the resolution adopting the 2021 through 26 Transportation Improvement Plan and Arterial Street Improvement Plan as presented at the June 16, 2020 public hearing. Or option 2, do not recommend approval of the draft document and provide direction to staff. And the mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Rick, thank you for the presentation. And I always love how you come up with pictures here to spark interest. Where is that?
That is in Swindon, England. It's
Man,
an old non-conforming roundabout that they tried to upgrade to work better.
wow.
That's what you want in Federal, is that right? On 320th and 99?
There we go. That's a perfect spot for it. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for that explanation. A little levity there. Committee members, any questions for Rick?
Oh,
All right.
there you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Committee member Moore. Yes.
Thank you. You know, I'm actually interested. I have 2 questions. One of them is the citywide pedestrian safety system improvements. Can you speak more to that? Because you hit it right on the nail there, and that's on the head. Actually. Always idioms, always get it wrong. But it's an important topic because, you know, I think we have had some issues there. So why don't you kind of speak more to that, and then, and maybe committee chair, you can answer this part, but refresh my mind. So this would essentially go to the full council for first reading. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Or is it a? Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Resolution doesn't require a second reading.
Council resolution does not require a second reading. Okay, so it would go for
That's
a
right.
full
Yeah. Thank you.
enactment. Okay, all right. Thank you. I just needed a refresher on that.
So with respect to this project, so in the local road safety plan, we found that over half of the fatal and serious injury collisions in the city were either pedestrian collisions or run off the road collisions, with a slight majority being on the pedestrian safety side. So we've actually, had the program for a while to install more of these. It's funded out of the 0.5% gas tax increase that we saw. Gosh, what was that? 2009, I think it was. So, and that's how many of the ones that we already have been installed. The local road safety plan identified a particular subset of our street system that primarily 5-lane arterials where both sides are retail in our mid-block crossing locations where people are tending to get hit crossing mid-block. So this is a project that would provide several locations all at once based on those criteria. And we have submitted the grant application for this using federal highway safety funds. And we'll find out around the end of the year whether we got that. So, and so with that, the match is only 10% match, and if we are able to obligate construction funds, it's fully that phase is fully funded. So, we're looking at a relatively small contribution of city safety funds to leverage well over $1 million worth of pedestrian improvements.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
Council President Honda.
Thank you. Around April 15th, EJ, the mayor, and I were having an email discussion about the trees and the flags along Campus Drive. and the fact that something has to be done to allow the flags to fly freely. The trees are impeding several of them. EJ had mentioned in an email on April 15th that he would look into putting this into the transportation improvement plan, and I don't see it here. So,
Right. So we looked at that, and the cost to address the street trees would have exceeded well over $2 million. I forget the exact number I had. It was about $2.5 million. And would not be eligible for any type of grant funding. So that would be a big chunk out of purely city funds in order to address the problem. Now, you could piecemeal that over time. The challenge with that is the cost per unit of sidewalk that you're replacing on street tree removal would be commensurately higher. So that's always a trade-off. But as a result, in the prioritization process, it did not rank very well. And that's why you're not seeing that here.
So Rick, the trees have a great potential to destroy the sidewalks and the street by their roots. Is that not something that we should be trying to take care of before that happens?
No, we can take care of the sidewalks. And it's just a matter of removing those street trees completely and replacing them is a significant increase in cost.
Okay.
And it's primarily a maintenance function, so rather than a capital project.
Okay, well, have to see what else we can do about that then.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to find some different funding for that. But I definitely agree. That is a problem that's been going on for a while now. And I wonder if it just makes sense for us at this point just to take those flags down. I don't think they're being served at all by the abuse that they're getting from the trees, and nor do I think they really comply with the standards we have for flying flags anyway.
If we could get a volunteer to I need to think about this. There's this Optimist Club put those flag poles up, and it's been 31 years this year.
Yep.
It's something we feel very strongly about. I'm getting a lot of concerned citizens every year. The number of people who are concerned about what's going on increase, and this year with the amount of walking that people are doing, being confined to their homes, has increased the concern of our citizens. And we need to be doing something. So I'll be talking to you, EJ, or Rick, whoever I'm supposed to be talking to about this.
Yeah, I was going to ask the chair if I can jump in.
Absolutely, please do.
When you guys are at a breaking point. Yeah, so we looked at it like Rick mentioned, and the follow-up from it is, like Rick said, it doesn't rank just based on the number of outstanding safety projects in the plan currently. As you alluded to, it is definitely a maintenance issue, Council President, with the tree roots. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you on that. And, frankly, we have that same issue, for lack of a better word, at multiple other locations throughout the city. I know you and I have discussed that at some other locations previously, too, including out by Celebration Park, like probably most notably outside of this location along campus. Ultimately, what it comes down to is it's a systemic maintenance project, more in line with some of the other projects we do. So this is ultimately probably a conversation for during the budget conversations. So
Okay.
we will, because I mean, really what we're talking about is creating a maintenance program similar to the surface water small CIP that we address whatever maintenance items come up over the course of the year, similar to this. I would put this, granted, it's a very different scale, but online with programs like the flower baskets and programs like, spot pedestrian improvements or fixing a sidewalk panel that we have within the maintenance programs. So, and like I said, they're very different scales. This is a huge undertaking just to get the section along campus cleaned up, let alone anywhere else in the city. So when we come to the budget, that'll be a conversation that, if we want to try and develop this as a ongoing maintenance program funded at some level that, is acceptable to council, I think that's going to take some council input there as to what that should look like. But realistically, even just looking at campus, we're probably looking at several years of work, using that $2.5 million number that Rick threw out. That's going to be multiple years worth of work in any systemic program. So we're trying to come up with solutions, but as was already mentioned in this meeting, budgets and ongoing income based on the global economy is a little bit up in the air right now. So we're trying to balance all that. So I mean, we're certainly open to any ideas and feedback that any of the council members might have on this.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I see Councilmember Kochmar, you have your hand raised. You have the floor.
Thank you. I apologize if I missed you speaking about this, but it would appear to me is when we're talking about the maintenance for those trees, have we talked about limbing them up to allow for the flags to fly freely?
Yeah. So we had an arborist.
I mean,
Go ahead. We had an arborist look at it in 2014, and the professional recommendation from them was that we would have to take down so much of the tree we would kill the tree in the process. So the professional recommendation that we received then was to remove all of the trees and replant them. That any sort of preventative maintenance would basically we'd just incur the same costs plus pay to limb the trees. So that has been what we've been working off of. We do that exact thing in other locations. At a very high level, what this stems down to is the trees that were planted there are too large for the area that they're in, and we really need to have a smaller, mature tree in that location, just based on the width of the planter strip there.
May I ask a question again?
Yes. Council President Honda, go ahead. And then Committee Member Moore, you'll be next.
Is there a requirement to have trees along roads? Is that a requirement in the code or?
No, it's been part of the adopted standards, almost since city's incorporation. So there's no code language. It's just been a public works standard that the council had reviewed and approved at the time.
I love trees. My husband works for a tree company. But what I don't love is what EJ and I have been discussing is when the tree roots go out into the street and cause the streets to buckle. And, it's almost like if you drive through Celebration Park, you have these little speed bumps that you're driving over, and it's only getting worse. And maybe it's a discussion we need to have in the future. I love trees, but it has to be the right tree if we're going to be planting them alongside streets and roads.
I think that is the key, Council President.
Yes,
the right trees.
We have modified our street tree standards over the years to narrow the list of trees that would be acceptable in order to prevent that in the future. We're looking for trees that send the roots down rather than out. So we have addressed that for new construction. It would be the retrofits is the issue here.
Thanks.
All right, Rick. Well, thank you. I don't see anybody else with their hands raised. And so unless there's any additional questions, I'd certainly entertain a motion at this point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I will recommend approval of the proposed resolution at the June 16th, 2020 council meeting after a public hearing.
I will second that.
Okay. Unless there's any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Rick. Now we're on to,
Who moved?
yes?
Who moved? Who made the movement?
Oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca. I thought you could recognize the voices.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Councilmember Moore made the motion, and Councilmember Tran made the second.
Thank you.
And then it was carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Continuing on, the next item on the agenda is authorization to accept transportation grant funding, and to present is Deputy Director Desiree Winkler.
Good evening, Chair Kopang, members committee, members of council. As you said, I'm happy to accept some additional grant funding. So the policy question is, should City Council authorize staff to accept federal grant funding for a transportation improvement project? This particular project is a preservation project on Southwest 320th Street between 11th Avenue Southwest and 3rd Place Southwest. This is actually probably the last section of 320th from one end of the city to the other that has not seen an overlay in the last 20 years. So you can tell which section this is when you drive it. So we applied for this grant at the Puget Sound Regional Council King County Preservation Program in 2018. We weren't awarded the grant at the time. We were placed on a contingency list. What it was looking like in the last couple of years is that enough of the agencies that had been awarded projects weren't moving them along fast enough so that there was an opportunity for us to be able to get this grant. Council authorized us to utilize some city funds out of our capital program to advance the design and environmental for this project. And so we were successful then in finally getting this awarded. We just found out about it for sure last week. And I wanted to let you know that in this particular program in 2018, this award gives us a hit rate of 4 for 4. So we got all 4 grants that we applied for in this particular program. So the project funding, with a construction cost of $928,000, the grant funds for construction are $518,000, and the match is $410,000, with the bulk of those expenditures coming in 2021. The match is proposed to come out of the arterial overlay program, which is generally funded at $1.5 million annually from real estate excise tax, which is dedicated to capital improvement projects only, and the motor vehicle excise tax, which needs to go to streets. So the options considered are to approve the proposed resolution to accept transportation grant funding and authorize the mayor to execute related agreements. Option 2, do not approve the proposed resolution and provide direction to staff. The mayor recommends approve the proposed resolution to accept the transportation grant funding, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Desiree, thank you to you and your team for your good work. Obviously, being 4 for 4 is pretty remarkable. And it's also, I think, a testament to the city that when they were looking for a place to spend money before it went away, they came to us. So it's good. Absolutely. Do we, committee members, any questions? Seeing none. Deputy Mayor Honda, you still have your hand raised. Did you have a question?
No, I keep forgetting to lower that.
No, that's
Sorry.
okay. That's okay. Just wanted to make sure everybody that wants to speak can. So I'd rather err on the side of asking the question than assuming. This is a pretty straightforward issue here, Desiree. I think we want the money, don't we? So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to forward the proposed resolution to the June 16, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
Thank you,
I'll
Councilmember
second
Tran. Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Unless there's any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, Desiree, you have one more item for us, and that is the authorization. Oh, wait, is that? Let's see. I think we just did that one. I'm going to scroll down. Let's see. Should this? Okay. The subject is transportation grant funding applications, and go ahead and let you take over, Desiree. Thank you.
All right. The policy question is, should the City Council authorize staff to submit the proposed grant applications for transportation projects? So WashDOT has these couple of programs they do every other year. They are for safe routes to schools as well as bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So we have two projects that we propose to submit. The first one is this one at 16th Avenue South between South 304th and SR 509 or Dash Point Road, a non-motorized path. So this is part of a larger project that we currently have design funds for, and we hope to receive right-of-way funds through the Puget Sound Regional Council program. So the portion that we propose to apply for a grant for would actually be under Safe Route to Schools program, because 16th Avenue backs to Sacagawea Middle School as well as feeds into Federal Way High School. So the project would be a non-motorized path, a separated path, like 12 feet wide, that would accommodate both bicycles and pedestrians. So it would be a portion of this longer path that will be extended to the north to 288th Street as part of that larger project I talked about. So the second project is South 288th Street between Military Road and 34th Avenue South. And this project is what we refer to as a road diet. The current cross-section of 288th Street is 2 travel lanes in both directions. We would propose to reduce it to 1 travel lane in both directions with a 2-way center turn lane, and then be able to add bike lanes on both sides of the street. This section actually matches the same cross-section to the east of 34th Avenue South that King County implemented a few years ago. So the project's financials would look like this. 16th Avenue South project, Safe Route to Schools, it's a federal program. Estimate project cost of $2.5 million. We estimate the possible grant funds at $2 million and estimated city match of $500,000. And these projects both of these will spread out between year 2021 and 2023. So the cash flow isn't all in 1 year. The 288th Street, Military Road to 34th Avenue road diet would be around 1.2 million with possible grant funds of 900,000 and the estimated city match of 300,000. The matching funds are proposed to come from transportation capital funds, which generally get around 1.6 million to $2 million per year annually from motor vehicle excise tax, real estate excise tax, and transportation impact fees. The options considered to authorize staff to submit the proposed grant applications for transportation projects. And option 2, do not authorize staff to submit the proposed grant applications and provide more direction to staff. The mayor recommends option 1 to submit the proposed grant applications, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Desiree. Looks like Committee Member Moore, you have your hand up. you have a question?
Yes, yes, I sure do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Desiree, remind me, and I think I remember Rick talking about this at some point, but we set a criteria for pedestrian funding, safe school, I don't know what the terminology you use, safe routes to schools. And can you kind of talk more about what criteria you used to choose this specific project versus, say, for example, Hoyt Road in Green Gables that doesn't have a sidewalk or anything like that for kids to walk through? So would love for you just to kind of remind me and kind of refresh my brain in that. Thanks, Desiree.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we sometimes get, there's a lot of needs out there. So let me say, Hoyt Road's a great project. Hoyt Road is not a real grant fundable project. And the grant administrators are the ones who really set the criteria on what is successful. So the safe route to school that we're proposing on 16th Avenue is actually, again, part of a larger project. And so we're going to score a lot of points there because we're getting design and right-of-way funded from some other place. So they like that. They like to see bags of money being brought to the table by whether it's the city or other grants. Success likes to follow success. So if you get one grant like that Lakota project that Jeff Hunn described earlier that had two different grant funds, that had the TIB and the federal grant funds, grants like to follow grants. They want to be the last one in to show that we're here to give you their last bit of money. So that's one criteria that we definitely need to pay attention to. Generally, they want to give projects on higher volume roads. So this project is actually serving as a non-motorized corridor away from Pacific Highway. And Pacific Highway happens to be one of our locations where we have higher accidents related to bicycles and pedestrians. So we score higher by providing this kind of parallel alternative pathway. So generally, that's really the big things that they're looking at. And they want to see projects that provide both pedestrian and bicycle improvements. Couple of times where we've done the Sacagawea project on Dash Point Road and now the Lakota project, the grant funding agency came back to us and said, we're not going to fund you unless you also have a bike lane. They want to see both. They don't want to just see a sidewalk or pedestrians. They want to see facilities for both. So, I can go on and on. I'm pretty, I'm pretty expert at what grants to apply for, what criteria that they use.
Yeah, Desiree. Oh, sorry.
Oh, and one other thing I want to add that has become a really big issue for all the grant funding agencies has been social equity. They are looking for projects that serve your disadvantaged populations, whether that be lower income, minority, English as a second language, potentially. So when they're also looking at who they're benefiting, they really are looking at trying to provide benefit to those disadvantaged populations.
Great. No, I think those are all critical points, and I appreciate you making that. And I liked how you described the grants follow grants. I think that's very well said. And I think as a sidebar question, and I'll just give it to you now, you don't have to answer it right now, but I'd be interested to kind of look at how many of your funds are funded through grants versus our own budget. It'd be interesting to kind of see a percentage of that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and we actually have we have some pretty good information about that. And I want to my gut feel tells me that capital funding wise is probably pretty close to 70%. It's got to come from other sources, not the city. So
70% of grant funded?
Yeah.
70% of capital improvement programs, at least. I mean, I'm thinking of some really big projects here too. But
come from grants.
Yeah, come from grant funds.
I think things like this, I think is valuable for the public to know during a budget shortfalls and the hardships we're about to continue to have. So I think it's valuable work, and it's a testament to the work that you guys are doing and the knowledge that you guys have. So thanks, Desiree.
Thank you.
Desiree, thank you. I got a couple questions. I think one of the things that's real important for us is that we present projects that are going to be safe, and I think that with that trail going on 16th, is there some provisions there to provide lighting and to make it safe? So it's it's in the woods, basically, so it's going to be very usable.
Yeah, absolutely. Street lighting will be incorporated as well.
Very good. Okay, good. And then the second one, I know that from about I-5 to past Thomas Jefferson on 288, they did do the road diet. They went from basically 4 lanes to 3 lanes with a center lane on 288 in the King County. Are we proposing to do something similar to that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay. And would that extend all the way to Pacific Highway?
The hope would be eventually, but unfortunately, when you get through the intersections, that's the really expensive part. So
Okay.
we're going to try to phase this the best we can within the available grant
Okay.
funds and our available funds.
I know that there's some good reasons for that recommendation from the staff, and I'd just like to understand those because it seems like we're going the wrong direction. To the layman, you're saying you're reducing capacity when we're a growing city. Why are we doing that? Especially when we're spending money to do it. What's the thought process behind that?
It always makes people nervous when you take away travel lanes. But here's the thing. It doesn't have a turn lane as it is now. Okay, so effectively, when you're adding the center turn lane, you're actually providing capacity for the through lane to continue to work, right? Because it's not
Yep.
being blocked by left turning vehicles. So
Right.
that's one thing. And there's a lot of driveways along there.
Yep.
So that serves that purpose. Now the volumes are such that can be handled by one through lane now and in the future. So we look at that in our modeling and make sure that we're not, doing something to get ourselves in trouble. So we're
Yeah.
we're confident.
No,
that this
I
won't-
think I do like the idea. I know you got a free right-hand turn, and always invariably I'll be ready to make a right-hand turn, and somebody will stop at that intersection, the intent of going through, and they'll be in the right-hand turn lane. And so I have to wait for the lights to agree to make a free right. When in actuality, I could have been able to do that if the road was revised as you're proposing. So I think that's just one more reason for us to consider this. So anyway, I think if there's any other questions, I'd like to hear those now. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion. Hearing no questions, do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will move to forward option 1 to the June 16th, 2020 council consent agenda for approval.
Thank you, Councilmember
Second.
Moore. And thank you, Councilmember Tran, for seconding that. Unless there's any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. A motion carries unanimously. That actually concludes our agenda. So unless there's anything anyone has for the good of the order, we will conclude our meeting here tonight. Going once, going twice. Okay, I guess we'll meet again July. What are we doing? July? We've got a holiday, July 4th. I think July 6th would be our next Land Use and Transportation Committee meeting. So we'll see you all then. Thank you. And I guess we have a council meeting tomorrow, so we'll see you then too. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Take care.
Good night. Aye.
Bye.